Today we have a special guest, Jack Brunson, and he runs Jack's Guitarology
Guitar
on this.
Keyology.
Okay, say it again, please.
Guitar Keyology. Jack's Guitar Keyology.
Guitar
It's
Keyology.
as I learned after I named it, it's called a portmanteau. It's when you take two words and you cram them together, and together those two words mean what the two words mean separately. So it's guitar archaeology, guitar keyology.
A portmanteau.
A portmanteau. That's what that literary term is called.
Dude, I'm gonna look
Like
that up. That's a
synergy, or words like that are portmanteaus.
that's a good word, man.
It is.
I'm gonna I don't know how to slip that into a sentence when I'm talking to people, but it's a good word.
All the other examples are escaping me at the moment, but there's like a whole list.
Well, folks, if you're in Lebanon, you should go to the square and see Jack's wonderful establishment. You have like 500 guitars there. Is that right?
Probably 300 to 350 at the store, and then I have about another 150 to 200 out in my workshop that are in various states of disrepair.
So you have to keep those humidity control and temperature control. It's all gonna be just so, right?
We do. Honestly, we're pretty lucky here in Tennessee that my split unit, AC unit in my shop has a dehumidification mode, and we're so humid here in Tennessee that I don't really have to worry about humidifying too much. I have to worry about dehumidifying, which is easier because it's easier to take water out of the air than it is to add more water. At least I think, I'd have to maintain distilled water in a whole humidification system. Taking water out's easy.
So what brought you to Lebanon? You're not from here, right?
I've lived in Middle Tennessee about half my life now. I'm from Mayfield, Kentucky, which is close to Paducah, about 2.5 hours from here. But I moved to Murfreesboro to go to MTSU when I was 18. And then I lived in Murfreesboro for about a decade. My wife and I met my wife in college, and we settled there. I got a job right out of college there in Murfreesboro, working for another guitar builder, Mario Martin guitar mill there. Yeah. And so I stayed there for about a decade, and it came time for my wife and I to buy a house. My father passed away. He left us a little bit of money. We had the money to do it. And we were looking at, even at that time, because this was 2019, but we were looking at housing, property values, that sort of thing. And just comparatively, Lebanon, I could get an acre and a 3-bedroom house and a detached garage that I could run my business out of and all of that. And it just seemed worth the drive. At that point I was going to commute to Murfreesboro to my work every day, but I just ended up the first time I came out here to look at the house, Lebanon reminded me so much of Mayfield, where I grew up, that I ended up wanting to stay here. My wife also grew up in a small town, and so we kind of like the the illusion of living in a small town with the ability to go get Ethiopian food in 25 minutes, or go see a show at the Ryman or something like that. So Lebanon, I've told people, is just kind of the best of both worlds. You can sort of pretend like you live out in the Tennessee wilderness, the middle of nowhere, but you're 25 minutes from Nashville and I-40, so it's a real good sweet spot for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a real gem that I struggle with sometimes. It's a world-class city that's just right down the road, and there's so much to do there. And my wife and I try to take advantage of it as much as possible, but it's impossible now. You used to be able to, you could hit all the good restaurants, but now they come and go so quickly. If you're going to get Ethiopian food, you better get it quickly because there'll be another one someplace else that you want to go to.
Yeah, the key is to find the one that's been run by the same older couple for 20 years. That's in the hole in the wall somewhere. Yes. My place is called Awash in East Nashville. The same couple's been running it for 20 years. Great Ethiopian food. But yeah, I mean, that was the kind of thing I couldn't get growing up. My small town was 2.5 hours from Nashville, 2.5 hours from St. Louis. So we were just kind of stranded out there, with not a whole lot. But I like the seclusion. I like the, sort of like I said, the illusion of living in a really small town.
Well, how'd you make? You have a great. It appears a thriving business on the square in Lebanon. You have all this work and repair and refurbishing and buying and selling, and you have a lot of a number of employees. But it's hard to start a business sometimes because you got to make that transition where at first you're not making a lot of money to survive on. So how'd you make the transition from
Um,
that?
well, what I usually tell people is I sort of Mr. Magooed my way into this. I feel like my story is a classic story of failing upwards. I was stumbling and tripping every step of the way, but somehow I
Stumbling
haven't
up.
peaked it yet. I'm still going uphill. No, I tell people I have a very firm, if you want to, any sort of business you want to start in this day and age, whatever it is, start on it now, just little by little. And that's the way that I started. I get a lot of people who come into my store and their heart's in a good place. And, I could have been this person if I didn't do what I did, but it's usually an older fella. And he comes in, he says to me like, "Oh, you're just living my dream. Like, I wish I could do this. This would be great." And all this. And I said, "Go ahead, then just start, buy a guitar, fix it, resell it, like you don't have to." A lot of people think that you have to like wait until you're ready to go get the loan and rent the spot and all of that. And honestly, that's the bad move. Cause when I decided to open the brick and mortar, I had already been selling online and had a pretty well established online reverb store, stuff like that. Reverb's kind of like eBay just for music gear, but I started selling on that platform second year of the platform. And so now, I've been on that platform for 10 years almost. And, there's a sort of backlog of karma you build when you're just slowly making sale by sale by sale. And then you've got 3,500 good reviews and people are more likely to buy from you. So what I tell people is that if I had said one day I'm going to open a guitar store and just waited until the time was perfect, instead of what I did, what I did was I had no plan. I had very few skills. I had,
Wait a minute. Wait, you had plenty of skills. Now you're saying no skills. Now,
well, I mean, okay. So comparative to what I've developed now and comparative to all of the things that I'm able to do now,
okay.
I had the very bare minimum of skills when I started. I had the amount of skills it required to have the idea that, and that's it. And I've learned a lot of the other ones along the way. I've gotten a lot of the other ones along the way. But if I'd have waited, I feel like if I'd have waited till everything was perfect and all of that, it just never would have happened. And the reason that I was able to sort of just step into a store, see, me and my wife were driving to Dairy Queen one day and we see this for rent sign, in the location that we're at now. And it was one of those, she just said, "Well, why don't you call about it? Surely we won't be able to afford it." And we called and the landlords were really nice. And I had 150 guitars already in my garage. So, I already had a good start. It still wasn't enough, when we got in and I got those 150 guitars into that. So you've been to my store. It's not a small store. It's got a big vaulted ceiling. It's about 1,700 square feet. So when we got those 150 guitars in, it looked sparse. It looked like there was nothing there. And so what I'm getting to is even with the little bit of head start that I had, it was still difficult to build up all that inventory and all that the first time. So in summation, anything you're wanting to run at, whether it be guitars, you want to build Lego kits and sell them on the side, you want to paint and sell stuff on Etsy or whatever, just start doing it, as little by little as you can. Work on it while you're watching TV at night with your spouse or your partner. Pick up these little things and just work on it little by little by little, because if you try to eat the whole elephant in one go, you're going to throw up, like you got to go at it just a little bit at a time. Also, there's something to be said for trying it out, because you could think like, it's my dream to open a guitar store. And then you get into the day to day of scraping finger cheese off of people's fretboards. And then you're like, this is disgusting. I don't want to do this at all, And that's
Yeah.
what you learn. You learn what the job really is.
You're giving me some all great vocabulary now. Finger cheese off the fretboards.
Yeah, that's the buildup of dirt and oil and skin cells, and it creates this gross pasty stuff that gets stuck to fretboards, and you got to scrub it off. It's really disgusting. I mean, I don't even think I'm under or like selling how gross it really is, but I tell people 90% of what I do is just cleaning. I just clean people's instruments for them. I just know how to take them apart to clean them real good. But yeah, I just whatever it is, start working at it now. It's no time like the present kind of thing. And you don't have the skills, you don't have the whatever, just do it a little bit. And the other thing that I did was, for years now, I got up, I did a little bit of work before work. I went and worked my 8-hour day, and I did a little bit of work after work. It kind of takes like bearing down into getting used to a sort of a longer work schedule. But if you've got a dream, you got to do the dream stuff in the time that the dream stuff is done.
Well, it's not, being an entrepreneur is not a 9 to 5 job. You think about it constantly. You think about it when you go to sleep, you think about it when you wake up, and you work at the first, at least you're going to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week for a couple of years. That's just the way it is. And then if you get, to the point where you can afford employees, and then they can absorb some of those hours, but at first it's a grind. There's no doubt about it. There's no perfect time to start, per your statement earlier. But you found the sweet spot. Hey, when I was at your shop, I was amazed by someone that came in, and he and his girlfriend, and he lovingly picked up a guitar, and you could tell he was just enthralled by this instrument, and he loved it and loved what it could do, and he was just playing it real softly, and it was just amazing to see that connection between what you do and the person that actually ends up with your instruments. And you see that every day, that
multiple times a day some days. And then we see it, we don't actually see it, but we get a really loving message on Reverb. Hey, I ordered this guitar from you. I just shipped a guitar to Kuwait, anywhere in the world. I'm in the island nation of Cyprus, and you shipped me this guitar, and I love it. I had been looking for one forever, and I can't believe, and we get those kinds of messages all the time. I tell people I've been kind of gifted with that a natural, the YouTube videos, the you may also like algorithm. Like, I just have that sort of inherently. I'm really good at meeting someone, getting to talk to them for a minute, and then going, oh, you know what you're going to love? Check this out. I've always had a really good innate ability for that. Another thing that's really helped me out is I've always been kind of a people person. I'm really good with people, always have been. My mom would leave me in the shopping cart at Walmart when I was 2, and I'd have 6 people talking to me. I've just always kind of been that way. My parents said I'd
Jack, was she trying to get rid of you, brother? Was she trying to get rid of you, or what?
Multiple times. I think Mom was like, I'm not trying to get rid of him, but if he's gone, he's gone.
Things happen.
No, my mom is incredibly supportive, and she put up with a lot. When I was growing up, she put up with a lot of loud rock music and a lot of guitar for me to get here. So, but going back to what you were saying earlier, I'm 3 years in now. 3 years into owning the brick and mortar. I just passed 8 years of running the store in total. I've got 5 employees, and I'm still working 6 to 6.5 days a week, every week. Monday is my day off, and generally I get about half a Monday off if I'm lucky. Every once in a while I'll get the full day. But being an entrepreneur in this day and age, you're right. It's just kind of committing to it. And, it's kind of giving up on caring about the money so much, and just putting yourself, eating last as the leader. Everybody else, you got to feed everybody else. You got to feed the business. You got to feed everything else. And then whatever's left at the end, that's what you get to eat as the head. Yeah. And that, I think so many people look at entrepreneurship as a way to make a quick buck, and it's really not anymore. It is a long-term way to build something that is strong and long-lasting. Security. I'm never going to get rich off this. I'm fairly certain that I'm building something that will continue to make me income into retirement and all of that. Like I have a store that I'll be able to teach other people how to run, and one day it'll be making me money when I can step back. But I know for the next, 20, 30 years, this is me. It's called Jack's Guitarchaeology for a reason, so I'm going to have to keep the show running.
I'm absolutely certain that you will keep the show running. Now, last time I talked to you in your shop, you had a story about chickens. This is completely off topic.
Oh yeah. So the reason people ask me, why did you leave Western Kentucky? And that's because legitimately the two biggest, forms of employment that you could get after high school in my county would be either catching chickens for a plant called Pilgrim's Pride that did poultry production. And that's literally what it sounds like. You put on a hazmat suit looking thing, you walk out to the fields at 4:30 in the morning, you throw chickens on a truck. Or you could produce methamphetamines very illegally. Those were the two things that, we had a Goodyear factory that closed when I was in high school. And then there was a candle factory that just got destroyed in the tornadoes back in 2021. So there is just legitimately no economy. It's a very depressed, impoverished area. I ran as far and as fast as I could. I think it's either next year or the next year. I'll have lived in Middle Tennessee half my life now. My dad lived here off and on when I was a kid. So I've been here long enough that I almost consider this more home than home was, especially Lebanon. Nowhere's ever really felt like home like Lebanon. The town here has been so accepting of me and my wife. When I first opened the store, I tell people I really expected to meet the 80s villain, the 80s movie villain, or the Mr. Burns type. That's there'll never be a guitar store on the square, is, that kind of, like the Wayne's World villain. But I never really ran into that. I have met nothing but support. I mean, we met through Robin. Robin's been fantastic. Everyone with the city of Lebanon. I've been even the mayor's been in a few times. Me and Mayor Bell are, we're on really good terms. He comes in, we talk about music, and it's just it's been awesome how supportive the town of Lebanon has made us really feel at home here.
Is Mayor Bell a musician? That's a new...
He is, yes.
Okay.
Well, at least I'm pretty sure he is. He used to teach rock and roll history at Cumberland. And he's been teasing me about wanting to do a sort of a lecture series at the store. And I told him anytime you want to come talk about the Beatles, I'm down, He said he's got a great British invasion lecture. And then he's got a great like history of American rock and roll lecture. And I was like, I'd love to do either of those at the store anytime you want to do.
Well, put me on the list if that happens.
I will.
Very knowledgeable. He's a very knowledgeable guy.
He's a very smart man, a very reasonable man. I like him a lot.
I'm glad he's our mayor.
Yeah, I am too.
Lebanon's just really exploded under his administration, and so and made what you're doing possible. And there's just a couple of real entrepreneurs on the square that have been a catalyst for growth, and we're just lucky to have them have you on the square. So people come from a long way. You mentioned Kuwait, you mentioned, I don't know, Kuala Lumpur, I don't know, somewhere like that. But they're coming out of Nashville probably to your store, even though there's probably a dozen stores in Nashville, I guess.
Yeah, I'm getting people who come from Nashville, Franklin. I'm getting people, of course, those areas. I get some pull of people from places like Knoxville and Atlanta. I've had a few people come down from Louisville and other parts of Kentucky. I've had people drive as far as like Pittsburgh and Chicago down.
Dang.
Yeah. I had one couple from Pittsburgh. They brought a big pile of stuff they wanted to trade me. And you might be asking, like, there are several guitar stores in Greater Nashville. And a lot of them I love. I mean, they're technically my competition, but I'm friends with the owners. I go to their stores when I'm through town. I just went to Fanny's and East Side and all these others recently, where it's a very non-competitive field, the Nashville guitar store world. We're all friends. We all get along. We all know each other. And we do a lot of inter shop trading and that kind of stuff. As I've told people, if there were double the amount of guitar stores and guitar techs in the greater Nashville area, we'd still have plenty of work. There's just more guitars per capita in Davidson and the surrounding counties probably than anywhere else in the world. I mean, I don't have official numbers on that, but maybe LA area would have, but I still think Nashville would probably win.
Yeah.
But the reason that people come to me over all the other shops in Nashville is that even before I had the brick and mortar, I sort of built a niche for myself as the oddball weirdo guitars guy. My store is not quite like other guitar stores you've been into. I don't just have a bunch of dealerships that I carry the same, 6 guitars that everyone else has. Almost every guitar that comes through my shop is used, vintage, refurbished, modified, rebuilt, something like that, which means that every piece is unique. Every piece is individualistic to some degree. As one of my buddies put it, our store is just it's a shop full of all the best pawn shop finds in the area. If you put them all in one place. My goal is that even if you've been playing the guitar for 40 or 50 years, I want you to be able to come into my store and see something you've maybe never seen before, and this comes out of my want to see stuff, because I've been doing this a while now. I've seen, every once in a while it gets to where I'm like, well, have I finally seen every guitar that they've ever made, and then something comes across my desk that I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? And it gets to be, that's exciting to me. That's fun to me, knowing how far into this I've gotten, and that I can still find nooks and crannies of it that I haven't quite gotten to yet.
Do you have a personal group of collection of guitars, I would assume?
Oh yeah.
And do you have amongst that collection, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, well, I have about 25 or 30 personal guitars that are just sort of, and my collection interchanges a lot. I have some guitars that are very sentimental to me, and then I have some guitars that are just sort of investment properties. I'm holding on to them until the price on them, I know the price will go up on them, kind of like a hold stock, if you will. Sure. They're worth $5 or $10 grand now. I know it'll be a $30,000 or $40,000 guitar one day. But I'd say of my basses, I have 2 basses from a company called Sarek Basses out of Chicago. They're moving to Asheville, North Carolina soon, that's closer to us, so I'm excited about that. But those 2 basses are my 2 number 1 basses I play. They're just so well made. And Jake and his team are doing such incredibly cool work. Of my acoustics, I have my dad's 1981 Alvarez Yari. Like I said, my dad passed away in 2017. And so that Yari that he played when I was a kid, it was also one of the ones that was made in the last 2 to 3 years of Yari's life. So Yari himself actually had a hand in putting it together. And it was my dad's, and I watched him play it when I was a kid. So that guitar, if the house were on fire and I could only run in and save one, that would probably be the one I would run for. And then electrics wise, my electric guitars rotate quite often. I have 2 SGs that I've souped up. Those are my 2 main players, I think, but I probably change electric guitars more than anything else. My basses and my acoustics, I'm pretty bonded to, but the electric guitar lineup rotates a lot.
Well, Jack, that's all the time we have for today, and we could speak for days. I can listen to your.
I love to talk. You get me started, I'll go forever.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for being on the program. I've learned so much. I've learned at least 2 new words so far. And I'm
take finger cheese. That one's for free. You can have that one.
Well, folks, thank you so much. If you want to see Jack's store, it is on the square in Lebanon. Please join him soon, and say you saw him on the deep dive with Rick Wintering. Bye bye.
Thanks.